大家好，我今天来到了慕尼黑。今天坐在我身边的是《乌龟的七个秘密》的作者Aljoscha Long 先生。Hello, Aljoscha。
你好。
It's very interesting to many readers, I think. First of all, for one thing, its main character is a turtle. Could you tell me what inspired you to use animals?
The inspiration came when Ronald read a part of the Bhagavad Gita where it said something about retracting your senses from the world so that you can get connected to a higher consciousness. And I think the turtle is a good example how you can use animals to transport certain emotions. When you look at her with her grumpy face and they get quite old, you can imagine it's a very wise creature. I think animals have the advantage that you can project your thoughts into that animal, and if you have a person, you might not like this person, so you get a bit distance and are not ready to accept the thoughts.
But these 7 secrets, how do we apply this in real life? Of course, that's the whole point of reading this book, but perhaps you could give us some tips. I am easily stressed, you know, kids, work, or for a young, fresh college graduate who lands a job in a highly competitive work environment.
That is a difficult part, to have wise ideas, but then translate them to the modern world. First of all, the modern world is crazy, so it actually would be good to change something about it.
Yeah.
But okay, not everyone can say, okay, so I quit my job and just meditate. Well, that's also not realistic. But what you can do to take the principles that are in this book, seven principles, they might help you in your job, even if it's very stressful, very modern, very competitive. For example, when we talk about slowliness, it's not that you move really slowly like a turtle or be tardy or procrastinate. No, it's that you do things in the time they need, and don't try to do several things at the same time, because that is actually slower.
We don't really multitask.
As a psychologist, I'd say the research I know shows that there is no real multitasking. It sometimes seems like if you're multitasking, but it's more like you're switching very fast back and forth. And if you take into account that to get into it, it takes some time, you're actually wasting a lot of time when you're multitasking.
Another principle in chapter 6 is this non-violence. How do we really, exercise this non-violence if we are met with violence?
Doing something against violence can be 2 ways: that you go outside, that you learn fighting in a physical sense, or also in a mental sense, that you fight and be hard. But actually, it's not necessary. If you encounter some violence, for example verbal violence, what happens? Some sound waves reach your ear. The rest all happens in your brain. So you can counter this violence, and that's the best part where you can work on yourself. You don't have to be harder and tougher. Just ask yourself, what's inside you is so hard and brittle that it can break so easily. While of course all this bullying and verbal violence that's going on, I find it horrible, of course.
Right.
But I mean, I don't have any recipes to change the whole world. But I have some ideas how you can change it.
Another principle that you mentioned in the book about being true to yourself, but on the other hand, not to go against the flow. You used a vivid example of how Kuma really just enjoyed the flow of the river as she jumped down. Would these 2 forces sometimes be in conflict?
That's a very good and also very difficult question. Like we are in Germany here, like if you grew up in the Nazi regime, well, if you don't went with the stream, so to say, well, you end up in a concentration camp. So that's not a solution. But if you look closer at it, what happened? Like a lot of people went with the stream, just did what they were told. Others, they took the stance, a fight against it.
Right. They tried to assassinate Hitler, for example.
And then more often than not, they were killed. But then there were people who went with the stream, but used the different currents that are in every stream to go in their direction. For example, they were hiding Jews, they were not cooperating directly, so they were having some very mild resistance, but enough resistance that they could live their life and make life for others easier and even save some people. You have to find your way in the flow. I think humor is the best way to cope with most things.
Can you share with us some of your daily rituals to stay mindful, to stay peaceful, in balance?
I do a little bit of yoga and Tai Chi every day, but what helps me most is that during the day, like every now and then, for example, now, just thinking, okay, where am I now? What am I feeling in my body? What's the weather like? In the here and now. And only do that for a few seconds and you feel different. You're centered and more in balance.
So how would you like this book to help the reader?
I hope every reader can find some parts at least which are helpful in his or her life.
Yeah.
To stay more relaxed and friendly, basically. I think it's so important to be friendly to people and to be friendly to yourself.
Right.
I think that solves a lot of problems.
乌龟的七个秘密这本书我真的非常推荐。身为译者，我觉得一边翻自己就在洗涤自己的心灵，找到了更多重新平衡自己的方式。Thank you so much.
再见。
Bye.